Thank you so much for being a part of our study in Deuteronomy. We're in chapter 13, and we have skipped through a number of things in 12, and we're going to skip through some more after we get through this one in 13, because we got some great stuff in the next chapter. So here we go. This is an important passage that we're going to read because it was used against Jesus at his trial before the religious authorities in Jerusalem. This is how it reads, chapter 13, verse 1. If prophets, or those who divine by dreams, appear among you and promise you omens and portents, and the omens or the portents declare to them take place, and they say, let us follow other gods whom you've not known, and let us serve them, you must not heed the words of those prophets or those who divine by dreams, for the Lord your God is testing you to know whether indeed you love the Lord with all your heart and all your soul. And then later on it says, but these prophets who divine by dreams shall be put to death for having spoken treason against the Lord your God. So this is obviously an important command to be taken. Now obviously we are not advocating putting people who speak against God to death today. There was a time in the ancient world when that took place, I believe, Rudy, because God was laying down the blueprint for the worship only of God and the fear of the Lord and to love Him and love Him only. So let's talk about that for a second if we can, and then let's fast forward to how this was applied to Jesus and go from there.
Well, in the dream, in what I said yesterday about Balaam, works in this passage as well, because he knew what was going to happen in the future. It hadn't happened yet, but it would. But he did what the scripture said not to do. He actually brought in the worship of another God in his prophecies.
All right. That's an interesting passage. I just studied it the other day, and it is, he had an encounter with God. Like a real live encounter with God.
He did.
And then he still turned his back on God and was still used for wrong purposes.
Just think about his proclamation. I fall before the Lord with my eyes open.
Yeah.
My goodness. I remember one day, I had been, people had visions of God in their lives, and Paul is one of my heroes, and so I asked that I could see Jesus, and one night in my bedroom while I was reading before I went to bed, I looked to my right, and there was a set of feet with sandals, and I knew who it was. And I went kind of up his ankles to his shins and saw there was a robe there, and there was no doubt who it was. And I remember saying, Father, I am not worthy to look on your face.
Right.
And with that, I believe he was testing me. In a way, it seems to me when I think about what Balaam said, I fall down with my eyes open and I see the Lord. It's like how prideful that is.
Yeah. I'm going to just take this along the same line to apply it. And this is a temptation that every preacher has, and that is to take what God gives us and then to use it for ourselves. When I was a young preacher, and I'm not going to mention his name, I served with a very nationwide prominent guy. I was doing my field education in New Orleans, and I volunteered in his ministry because I was blown away by this big name preacher, okay? And I believe he had this very sincere experience with God. But it wasn't too long after I graduated from seminary and I left New Orleans that he was corrupting the gospel to make money. and he ended up, he's now deceased. He ended up just in a horrible shape in his life, got divorced, got into a gambling addiction, got beat up by some fellows who stole his stuff, was going to commit suicide. Thank God he got redeemed before he died, I think. But there's this tremendous potential when you're given a great gift from God to then turn it around and to use it for yourself. And we're getting off topic somewhat, but just to say, the Lord made it really clear in this passage in Deuteronomy, don't do that. Now, let's go from there if we can, Rudy. This passage was used at Jesus' trial, and this was the accusation religious authorities used against Jesus. You want to talk about that a bit?
Well, he was saying that he was God, and or at least saying that you say that I am.
Right.
And so they took that as breaking Deuteronomy 13.
Right. Yeah.
Only the evil one could have darkened their eyes to this reality.
Right.
But we also see it with Paul and in the stoning of Stephen. This is the reason that Stephen was stoned.
Right.
And the thing is that the person that brings the charge, and there has to be 2 or 3 because the death penalty cannot be placed on an individual without the witness of 2 or 3. It's not like the legal system in the United States, it only takes 1. But along with being a witness to somebody's disobedience to God, you also had to throw the first stone.
Yeah.
And my word, that's a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
And not sure I'd want to be that, even if it were true, would want to be that person.
Yeah, I agree with you. Before we close out, let me mention to you, Rudy and I often say, how could we be like the bad guys? Let me tell you how. It is so tempting as a preacher when God gives me something to somehow turn it into making it something about me. Number 2, when somebody does something mighty but they don't do it my way, they don't say it just like I would say it, it is so easy then to condemn or to judge. So it's very important for us to be careful, and we do need to test the spirits.
We do.
But I've been part of the citywide prayer movement in Kansas City for a long time, and there were people out of the Catholic Church and out of the Charismatic Church and out of the Evangelical Church, and they all did things differently, and it wasn't for me to judge one of the people who were different from me and say, you're wrong. It was more for me to say, God, what are you saying to me through them? Last word, Rudy.
That's true. The thing is, our judgment just seems to rear up inside of us because we think that in some instances we know, and really we don't. And
right.
So the only way to really evaluate what's going on is just like everything else.
Yeah.
Father, help me.
Yes.
And I just don't make any decisions in my life without, I do it sometimes, but on thinking about it, there's always this coming back to the Lord that He honors, I think. It's like, you've taken the reins, did it on your own, and it's like, even if it was working out well, it does you good to ask the Lord, is this what you would have me to do, or what I should have done?
Right.
Because we've never had a good idea that was ours. It doesn't mean that we've never had an idea. It's just never had a good
idea. That's so true.
So, what do you think about that?
I think it's good. Thanks so much, Rudy. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless you.